The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Good evening and welcome to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio with my co-host tonight, Sarah Adams. Hi Sarah, you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here.
That's
I'm
good.
happy to be on this evening.
And our guest tonight is Maria Wheatley. Hi Maria, how are you?
Hi, yeah, I'm very well, and thanks for having me on the show.
Now, I'm a little under the weather tonight due to attending the Probe International Conference and having a bit of a late night last night, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little off tonight. So I'm sure Sarah doesn't feel too sorry for me, but I'll let Sarah do most of the talking tonight. I've got a bit of a sore throat as well from drinking too much basically. But I wanted to start off, Maria, with I know you've done a few interviews in the past. But what are you actually working on right now? Is there a particular project you're working on, or what are you doing right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm doing some research for my next book, which is going to be about Stonehenge and some sites across Europe, such as sites in Sardinia and Malta, for example. And I've been uncovering some quite unusual burial finds around the Stonehenge area, some of which sound out of this world. And I'm really trying to get in touch with the people of Stonehenge, because sometimes the monuments that they built are so beautiful and amazing and gigantic that we forget about the people that actually built them.
All right, okay, that's interesting. What kind of burial sites are you looking at? Why are they unusual?
Some of the recent burial finds that have been reanalyzed by archaeologists such as Michael Parker Pearson and others, for example, have looked that in England we look at a lot of the Bronze Age era to be the people were interned beneath round barrows, for example, and the Neolithic were interned in long barrows. Well, some of the round barrow finds have been quite intriguing because it shows that they were slightly mummified, which wasn't thought of in ancient Britain before, and that sometimes some of the people weren't interned into the barrow for up to 400 years, so they were exposed somewhere else, maybe in a house to go and speak to. So the dead were preserved for up to 4 or 5 centuries before they were buried.
Right, that's unusual, isn't it? I've never heard anything like that before.
It is very unusual, and more than that, what they did is they created like these round rings so that each joint, a round ring was put in, so the body was always in its correct order, because given 50 to 100 years, the bones would just fall to pieces, even if you did have slightly mummified muscles. But they kept them intact by using these very strange rings, and we have to ask ourselves, why is that? What was going on? There was a direct link to the ancestors, and their death rites were very different to ours. And maybe even these people, and some of them were quite young actually, maybe 14, 15, 20 years of age, may have been revered. Maybe they were the seers of the community, for example.
Right. I haven't really heard about bodies being mummified outside of Egypt. Is that unusual, or because I thought that was just something that the Egyptians did?
Well, there's been another find by the archaeological team from London that have found mummified bodies in Callanish. But this time what they did was actually put them into peat bogs to naturally mummify them. The Wessex mummified people that were not interned for 400 years were probably bound in sort of bandages or linen, and that was how they were partly preserved before the rings went into them to keep their skeletons intact.
Right, so is this the first sort of find of its type in the UK? Has there been other sites other ancient sites where this similar sort of thing has been found?
No, this is quite a unique find and an insight into the Bronze Age burial rites. And we got to remember that the Bronze Age, these people that were being buried around the Stonehenge area that were interned like that were quite contemporary to the stone circle. So this was maybe part of the whole ritualistic lifestyle of Stonehenge. It's opened up a new window into the ancient past.
So how old is Stonehenge? I mean, you get different figures, as to how old it is. I mean, is there a way you can actually give an accurate figure to the age of Stonehenge?
We see it's an archaeological acceptance that if you have two pieces of carbon found, they choose the youngest date anyway. So you could have one piece of carbon from, say, 7000 BC, which was found at Stonehenge, or 7700 BC to be accurate, by a carbon find of 2500 BC. And what they did was took the younger date. That's an archaeological policy that is ridiculous, but that it is what it is.
Right. So like a lot of the sites may be a lot older.
Absolutely.
Than we're being told.
And with these recent finds of these strange burials, it was found that some beaker pots were put in at the time 400 years later. So you can't date anymore by the pottery that is found within the interment as well. Plus, Charles Darwin, many centuries ago, went to Stonehenge and realized that worms can move objects in the ground through the different layers. So when they find an object that could have actually been moved by a worm, so it's very difficult to date things. And I think most people are accepting these days that the clock is being switched way back, possibly to even the Mesolithic era, after the ices melted with a comet impact. So I think we can safely say these ancient sites could even date back to 10,000 BC.
Right. So what exactly is Stonehenge? I mean, we hear stories about they used to hold rituals and things there, but what was it used for? Why was it built?
The land where Stonehenge was chosen is quite unique. So I think it was the land that attracted the ancients there. It's on a particular area where the rising midwinter sunrise is at an angle to the moon set. It creates a right angle between the sun and the moon, and that doesn't happen anywhere else in the UK. And plus with that, you have a deep lake beneath Stonehenge, which generates a huge electromagnetic field. And you have a huge linear line that goes right away around the world, creating a great circle. So it's like a ley that goes through Stonehenge, but project it around the world and it becomes a circle. And the ancient Druids said that there's 12 great circles that go around the globe. So Stonehenge stands at a very unique point, and Stonehenge was many things over many periods of time. So Stonehenge phase 1 consisted of 56 blue stones in a circle surrounded by a beautiful brick kind of wall called a henge about it, and it had two entrances. So that was Stonehenge phase 1, and I think that was built by people that had elongated skulls, and I think it was a ritualistic night monument. I think it was a nighttime monument because the heel stone, which stands just in front of the entrance in the northeast, which many people associate with the midsummer sunrise, is actually more accurate to the mid-swing cycle of the moon. So every 9 years, actually, the moon will sit on top of the heel stone. So I think Stonehenge phase 1 was a nighttime goddess ritualistic monument that around about 2500 BC, when the Bronze Age people, often called the beaker culture, seemed to dominate the area, it was then turned into a solar monument. It was turned into a solar monument because it once had a very narrow avenue And in 2500 BC, it was made much, much bigger, so that roughly speaking, the midsummer sun would rise over the heel-stone as seen from the center. And that's when the Stonehenge that you and I are familiar with, the great trilithons and the huge Sarsen circle. And then it became a daytime monument, in my opinion.
Okay, you mentioned these people with elongated skulls. Who were they exactly? Do you know?
It's very difficult, really, to try to understand them, because I was doing some dowsing in the Stonehenge area, and that's how I discovered the elongated skulled people. And I've only really seen one skull from the area anyway, which was what I call the Neolithic High Queen. She had a very elongated skull, because what happened, you see, around about 200 years ago, if you were rich and you had a shovel and you owned some land, you could go dig in where you liked and do what you want. And that's really what happened to some degree. So a lot of the long barrows were ransacked, but some of the barrows that were investigated by more learned people of the era and the scholars, they started to record that which they found, and left some kind of early archaeological records. And from those early archaeological records that are in Swindon, just down the road from where I live, at the National Monuments Record Office, you can look them up and find out that they were describing people with very elongated skulls. Where they came from, I don't know. Some DNA testing that Andy Collins discussed at one of his lectures seems to pinpoint them round about Central Europe or the north of Europe. Could be a strong possibility. But as there has been no DNA testing on the Neolithic Queen or any skull in the Stonehenge area, theories abound until that's actually occurred.
Mm-hmm. I've seen these elongated skulls also found in like Peru as well. I don't know if you know anything about that. They're saying is that the same beings?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the ones in Peru that Brian has done a lot of work with are much more elongated than the people of Europe and Stonehenge, for instance, and they have predominantly red hair as well. On their skull base. So it seems that they would possibly be related, but I think that it will come to pass that the elongated people were all across Europe. When you go to the Maltese temples, and I'll be going to Malta on April the 25th again, taking a small group there, and we've got one or two places left if anyone wants to get in contact with me at Maria Wheatley at AOL.com, because one of my websites was ritualistically killed a few months ago at midnight, and a demonic face put on my homepage. So that's been rewritten and revamped.
Right,
But
okay.
when we it wasn't very nice. It was a horrible thing, but there you go. That's what some people do. But returning to the elongated people of Malta, they were the either the high priests there, the high priestesses, or they were possibly the royalty. But there they were, found in the Hypogeum, which the Maltese government and museum is still denying the public to see.
Mm. So what happened to what? Go ahead, Sarah.
It's very interesting, because you think about in Egypt too, the headdress that they were wearing, it looks like they have elongated skulls underneath that. There's a lot of theories about that,
Absolutely, and I think King Tut, for example, was probably very similar in his elongated skull to the Wessex people, for sure. So there could be, a direct link there. And I really do feel that with more research, you'll uncover that these people were all across Europe. And around about the time of 2500 BC, when the Bronze Age solar emphasis came to the British Isles, that's when at Stonehenge I researched that all of the elongated people, most of them were murdered. A genocide was committed in the area to eradicate the land of the elongated people.
Right, okay. That's interesting.
Because I'm very, I'm very blunt about saying that I remember my lives in Egypt and even past. I know it sounds a bit insane, but on Mars, and I know just from that the Egyptians were the offspring or the direct root from Mars.
Yes, well, a lot. I do regression. I've done regression since 1996, and I have regressed some people that have even felt their own elongated heads, and myself included. Because when I went to see the elongated queen, I asked Spirit, as you do, and I often say this, that I did. I said to Great Spirit, "Can you get the curator out of my way so I can attune to her skull and feel around her brow, crown, and throat chakra to see the energetic field and to see if that was still there." And indeed it was in place, and it was almost like she was conveying a message, that a puzzle for me to put together. So I really do feel that these people, their heritage, whether, like you say, Sarah, they come from Mars and went to Egypt, or wherever they went, I feel that their story is really on the verge of being told and revealing our ancient and true history.
Yeah.
I see, and I've had some instances, at least twice in my life, where I've shapeshifted into something else than myself, and you might say that I had a more elongated skull and definitely very large eyes and stuff like that. Interestingly enough, when you were talking a minute ago, when you were saying about how there's the water underneath, and it also, if I look at the Stonehenge, it almost looks like a crown. It looks like a crown almost. So I wonder if it has something to do with the crown chakra. But the water underneath, when you said that, I had a shock of energy literally go through my body directly from my heart.
Yes, it's a huge lake beneath Stonehenge, because you've got to remember that Stonehenge was sited on sloping ground. It was an engineering nightmare. But because one side of the stones is in the ground much further than the other side, because the ancients knew it was on that parallel where the rising sun sets an angle to the setting moon, is on the 51st parallel that goes around the world. The heel stone stands at 51 degrees. And even more than that, if you take that ley to make it into a really big circle from the 51st parallel right the way around the world, and now you project the zodiac from the stars above onto the land below, something truly magical happens that I noticed. If you use 30 degrees, which is what the ancients used to cast horoscopes many years ago, using the equal house system, and you divide a circle in space of the zodiac 360 degrees by 12, you get 30 degrees. Project that onto the land from Stonehenge, so you go from Stonehenge 30 degrees, like on a map of the world, and you start off with the sign of Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. Then you go to the second sign of the zodiac, which is Taurus. It absolutely perfectly matches the beginning of Taurus at 30 degrees, matches where the Taurian mountains are on Earth. And I think the Taurian mountains on Earth are called that because they mirror the constellation of Taurus in the sky. And if you take that way round the world, it matches to the countries and the temperament of the people within that country fallen beneath that celestial influence. What do I mean by that? For example, if you take the first 30 degrees of Aries, England falls in that, Germany falls in that, Africa falls in that. The really dominant, quite aggressive peoples that have started wars and etc., all falling with that warrior Mars energy of Aries cannot be coincidental.
That's very, very interesting. When I was there, I remember visiting and getting very near the Stonehenge. It was very windy and rainy, though. It gets quite crazy, the weather over there, I've noticed. There's some crazy storms. I noticed that the President of the United States came right after, I think, a couple of days and visited. It was interesting because I had done some work there. And energetically, I had just been to Glastonbury and I did some work there energetically. And then he visited the Stonehenge. I thought that's just very quite interesting because the whole
Yes,
Egypt, you know?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean
Yes.
that was a whole setup. Him being there because I happened to arrive the next day to go into Stonehenge on a private access tour, and I just happened to be talking to the security guards there, who just said the whole thing was a setup. The family there, it's just all a charade, really. But it's always quite interesting that with especially with male figures of political stance or corporate stance, seem to always have private access into Stonehenge whenever they please.
Mm.
Exactly. This is what I'm trying to get to. I remember they said that it was shut down just for his presence there, and I know he was the president of the United States, and that's probably an excuse of why. But I think there's something deeper, and that's what I was trying to figure out. Because you can recalibrate because it's connected to the ley lines, and you can recalibrate energy on certain at certain places. So imagine that they're using these different places to literally recalibrate the energy of the earth.
Is it true? I've heard that you can only walk around Stonehenge in one direction. Is that true, or was that some kind of myth?
No, because English Heritage have designed you to walk around the monument, what we call widdershins. That means counterclockwise,
Yeah.
and it's a sunwise monument. So if you walk around a monument sunwise, that's a sunwise monument, then you're walking within the power field of that. But if you go against the grain, so to speak, you're not flowing in harmony with the monument. Now, look, the Druids under the notorious or lovely, however you perceive him, King Arthur, he's always asked English Heritage to stop the widdershins and to go round in the correct manner. They have failed to hear that. So I think when people go into Stonehenge, they can't really connect to the monument as such because they're going against the grain. And we must remember that there's 9,000 people going around Stonehenge every single day. It is a money machine for English Heritage, and they will never stop that.
Right. Okay. I wanted to go ahead, Sarah. Did you say something?
The reason I asked that question is because I was just in New York, and they have something called Cleopatra's needle there. It's taken directly from Egypt. And what's interesting is why would they take something directly from Egypt, put it in New York? So these monuments are very, very, sacred, and they're energetically charged. So I do believe that some monuments are used to, let's see the word, to sort of reconfigure things energetically, especially with the ley lines. And I'm wondering if you knew anything about that.
Well, for instance, the coronation stone from an ancient site of a stone itself is what all the kings of England get, and the Queen herself sat on to be crowned. It's called coronation stone. It's underneath the throne. That came from an ancient site. All of the kings of Ireland in Tara would be by the stone of destiny. There has been missing stones at Stonehenge, which if you try to track them down, they're going to be into places interlinked with the royal family. I don't just think it's the ley lines. Ley lines have meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people over the eras. What's really important about these sites are the living earth energies that entwine the leys and the akashic records of the waters that hold on to the memory field beneath them. That's the key. So even if your home is above some type of underground water, it acts as like an akashic record. It records everything that was. And I feel that the people that certainly that I take into Stonehenge, that you make a connection with that kind of deep, pure water beneath it, it contains a lot of information. So you can then really connect to the holy history of the site. Now, that's what I feel that the top geomants, whether they are white, grey or black, know, and that's what they work with. But then they spoon feed grid lines and leys is a bit like to try to distract people from working with the living lights force within the deep waters of the earth.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about ley lines. Like, how are they connected to like ancient sites and stone circles and crop circles. How are they linked to those type of things, and what are ley lines used for? What were they used for?
Well, you get three types of lays, you see, and this has been categorized for many years now. So you can get like short lays that start at a standing stone and terminate at a standing stone, has been recorded by many geomancers. Then you get lays that people like John Michell, a very famous geomant and author, he postulated that some of those are engineered by man, because they point specifically to a sunrise or a sunset. So you get some astronomical lays, for example. Then you get like global lays. Then you get a ley system which has the living earth energies, the yin and yang earth energies entwine in it. So lays can be many different things. They're not just one thing. They're not just like a line that connects ancient sites. And during my research, I feel that I got to the most earliest classification of lays, which was done by Dr. John Dee, and he reports he was a very good astrologer and magician to Elizabeth I of the royal bloodline of medieval England, and it was he that said the magicians use them to give them power in their words and in their works. So it's a fact that if you have certain lays, they could activate certain different parts within your chakra system, within your auric field, for example, as indeed some grid lines can. But the difference between a grid line and a ley, for example, is a grid line is always focused at a particular degree east or west of north. So, for example, you've got a grid system which comes in from the northwest at 45 degrees. So some people that you can't, tell the difference between a grid line and a ley, all you got to do is get a compass and look to see what direction that line is coming in from. Then you can say whether it's a grid line or a ley, because there's quite a few negative grid lines that some people get confused with leys and think they're a positive thing, when indeed they're the opposite. They create geopathic stress. They can drain your house. They can drain where you live. So I think, to answer your question, yes, lays are many different things. They can be short, they can be long, they can have energies entwined in them, or they could just run for a short distance between two standing stones. But because in the 1990s, the New Age movement came about and sort of thought they knew a lot about lays, they just started talking about, oh, ley lines are this and they're that, and it's good to live at a crossing point of two lays. Prior to that, in the 1980s, everybody would be horrified if you lived across the crossing point of two lays. It's far too energetic. So I feel within the last 20 years, especially, the whole ley meaning of the ley line has morphed into something that it really isn't. And the interesting studies that were done many years ago on lays clearly say if you started to grow food or anything on lays, they would produce stunted food. They're not. They can pull energy into the ground as well. But some of the other types of grid systems can be very beneficial to us.
Okay, so
there's some that take energy and some that charge in a way, right?
Yeah.
So how?
Okay. So sorry. So in France, we have the healing waters, right? I'm wondering if those healing waters aren't above those that charge, and the water is charged and people drink it, and that also affects their energetic body. That's something that I thought a while back about.
When you get those sacred waters that come out of the ground, they produce their own electromagnetic field, which is a scientific fact. So wherever you get one type of energy, you tend to get another and another. So it creates a kind of whole kind of a holistic way. So you'll get a ley, you might get an earth current, you might get a kind of spiral pattern. You tend to get lots of different things all at the same place, which really does energize, which you're right, Sarah, it really does energize the living waters even more, and anybody that walks in or out of that energy field. And with some of the tests that I've done on standing stones, for example, and used equipment to measure different levels and different effects, if you go into the auric field of a standing stone and you go to the energy band, which I've lectured on quite a lot over the past 10 years, and have proved with electromagnetic sensing equipment, and place your hand on there for a minute or 2 minutes, that energy will build up in your auric field for up to 4 days. So you don't have to interact with the stones for long or an energy field for long to be imbued with energy yourself. And I think that's what the ancients were fully aware of about walking into and out of an energy field. Because if you've got an earth current, for example, we've done a lot of tests on earth currents, and right at the center of an earth current, and I want you to imagine an earth current to be, let's say, about 10 feet wide, and right in the center of that, 5 feet in either way, you tend to get a little band of energy that's always around 7 hertz, which is your brain in alpha, your brain in relaxing mode. So as you walk across the energy current, your brain is coming into sync with Gaia's Schumann resonance, and your brain will naturally become relaxed. And I think that's one way the ancients used to interact at ancient sites, not necessarily through the leys as such, they're far too fast flowing, but through the earth currents that go through the monument that have this beautiful alpha resonance that can bring you into a much altered state of consciousness.
Okay, so the ley lines, are they like a natural phenomenon? Are they? I mean, how are they created? Do all planets have ley lines?
Well, everything in space does travel in a straight line, according to, cosmological law. And what they're doing at, CERN at the moment is they can now put a neutrino, a really, really small part of a particle, so to speak. I'm not very scientific, really, at all. I just can say the word neutrino. But anyway, one of the engineers told me that I took around Avebury last year that they can now say we're going to release this neutrino in CERN, but we can make it arrive in a straight line in Italy. Right. Through the Earth. So I think naturally it's the line of least resistance, isn't it? A straight line, so to speak. So I really do feel some of the leys are natural. Some of them have been engineered to go in a straight line, as John Michel has long pointed out since the 1960s. Why is it, he says in his research, that he looks at some really famous leys like the St. Michael Ley? That was all his work. And he said it aligns precisely to the Beltane sunrise, that's May the 1st, and the Samhain sunset, which is the Halloween sunset. So that line must have been engineered by mankind. Another mighty ley that's often called the Spine of Albion, that goes right up north-south through the British Isles. Gary Biltcliffe has done a lot of work on that, and he noticed that it aligns to the summer solstice sun at its peak around noon. So they're looking at these lines and saying they must have been somehow engineered by man, maybe slightly manipulated. And when we turn to indigenous people, they're the wisdom holders of the land, like the Aborigines of Australia. They say you need to interact with the song lines, as they called them, because if you interact with the song lines, you can help Gaia's fertility, you can help growth, you can help abundance, you can manifest, in other words. So I think if we turn to the indigenous ancient peoples and their cultures, we begin to remember what leys and what earth currents were used for. And I really do feel they're the keepers of ancient wisdom.
It's all in that wisdom is all in the energy, because when I go places and I pick up energy or read the energy, it's contained literally in that energy, almost like the computer. It's a natural energetic computer system here on Earth.
Oh, absolutely. That's what everybody does when they go to places like Avebury. You know, they really do tune in. They feel it somewhere different, which I'm sure you've experienced yourself, Sarah, when you go to an
Oh
ancient site.
yes.
You do feel it. You do read the energy system. You do pick up on what which was and what can be the future as well. Now, one of the most fascinating lays that I've interacted with was, I call it the Duke line, because it was discovered by, well, rediscovered by the Reverend Edward Duke that used to live in the Stonehenge environs. And he had an occult library. Reverence tended to, a bit like the Vatican. No change there then. and and he had this beautiful map, and it had the straight line of a ley linking Stonehenge to Avebury and other sites beside. But this one was a little bit different because it had these orbits of these circles, which I have in my book, Divine in Ancient Sites. And these sort of like orbits of these circles going around the ley represented the orbits of the planets. So, for example, Stonehenge represented Saturn. Now, we all know that Stonehenge has 30 standing stones of dress sarsing, creating the stone circle with 30 lintels upon those stones. And it takes Saturn around about 29 to 30 years to do one great circuit throughout the Zodiac. So that was Saturn. The ancients realized that you move further on up the ley and you come to a place called Marden on the orbit of Mars. Well, Den is an old English word for settlement, farmstead. Marden, the settlement of Mars. And Avebury represented the sun and the moon, and Silbury Hill represented Earth. But more than that, when I showed that to an astronomer, he was aghast because he said, they're using the astronomical units from Earth to the planet. Then I thought, well, it went up to Saturn. What if I projected the line exactly and then put in the same astronomical units the ancients were using and see if there was any sites for Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, planets that weren't necessarily used by our ancient ancestors because they tended to go up to Saturn. So, well, I got an astronomer to do it. You know, I can't calculate all of that, not unless I have very sophisticated, good software. So anyway, he did that, and we found that exactly where Uranus should be, that's where you had an ancient site called Bellisnap. And Bellisnap is a spectacular ancient site. So, and where Neptune was exactly where the south coast is. Neptune is lord of the oceans, and that's where his ancient sites were. So, so leys can now be planetary systems brought down to Earth, representing the orbits of planets, linking in the celestial orbs of our solar system to the ancient sites below. That's the magical astronomical precision of these ancient people.
So how would you like locate ley lines? Is that linked to things like dowsing? I know dowsing is used to find water, but can you? How would someone who doesn't really know much about ley lines, how would they go about finding if they're near a ley line?
Yeah, that is so easy to do because the father of ley lines, Alfred Watkins, was one of the first in the 1930s to publish a book called The Old Straight Track. And he had a kind of little maxim, if you like, of how to find a ley in your locality. How to find a ley in your locality, you get a good old-fashioned OS map. Or if you're really good, you could use, Google Earth. But traditionally, you used a map, you had a ruler, and you had a pencil. That's all that you need. And you'd look for ancient sites or churches or springs or hill forts. They're the Druidic sacred sites. And if you have 5 or more in a straight line with your ruler and your pencil, then bingo, you've got a ley line. So it's so easy to interact and find leys within our locality by simply doing that. Getting a map and seeing if you've got 5 or more sites. And includes also manor houses. You include manor houses because the Templars and mystery schools and secret societies were the planners of manor houses, and they would know exactly where to place them on lines and energy currents, for instance. And that is why when you go to a stately home, for example, it's always sited in the esoteric center of its land. And that's why you go down a sweeping driveway. Then normally you go round in a circle and then you arrive at the house. That's a Masonic design canon that represents the flow of energy, and you reside in the heart of your landscape because that's where the soul or the genie of the land resides, or where you can contact the soul or the genie of the land. So that's, yeah. So I would say to any listener, get galvanized, get a map, and start finding leys in your area, and then try to see if there's ancient sites within 5 miles each side. Yeah. So you've got your straight line. Now have a look either side and get a hold of the wider picture. And if, for example, you get more churches or more springs or more manor houses or more ancient sites or more hill forts, you may even have earth currents entwining that. They're the real power in the land. And you can start to try and plot them like a serpent, entwining that ley. So it could be quite an exciting process. And then it's about getting your butt out of your chair, going out into the field and actually finding and interacting with these energies. So it can be a wonderful journey.
Connecting back to the earth, which I think is God's source energy or divine source energy. Now, sadly, in cities and stuff like that, you cannot connect to those sort of energies. It's almost very AI in cities, and this is why I encourage people to try to get out, and connect to the earth. I also think in food, I was just doing this a while back, some work on this a while back, of how vegetables and fruits and stuff, they're all charged with earth energy, which affects us on many levels. And the food that we eat now, especially in the United States, is so bland, so void of energy, fast foods and stuff like that. And really, it's all about reconnecting to the earth. That's something that I think a lot more people are going to do in the future when they realize just how important these things are.
Absolutely. I mean, I live in the heart of the Avebury area, and I'm surrounded by wheat fields. And I think it's awful when you get all of the spray and occur, and it's dripping in Monsanto Roundup. So if you do get a genuine crop circle, you are sitting amid Roundup. And it horrifies me when people start touching the corn, because it's now sprayed up to 8 times in one season, and Roundup is used in our fields just to help ripen the corn now. It's not down to the sun anymore. It's down to Roundup in this area.
That's really, really sad. I do have a question about crop circles, bringing that up. What is your view, belief, theory on crop circles? I was wondering if maybe, for me at least, I do tend to speak to different beings and connect to different beings. So I do know some things about crop circles, but do you think also that's the earth trying to communicate with us, or what do you think about that?
I think a while ago, when there was more genuine crop circles, that was indeed the case. I mean, I know people going back to the 1990s that have been divining crop circles, the more genuine ones, and they are like portals. They're like earth gates, and they kind of connect to the earth, to the cosmos. But recently, it became quite a commercial adventure, sadly so, and there were sadly quite a lot of man-made teams that go out, and I'm a local, and sometimes I've met these people. I don't know what motivates them or why they do it, but indeed some of them, even if they look very, very good, can be done by men, actually. In not that I'm I sound anti-men tonight, don't I? Don't mean to. But yes, but some of the genuine ones. That said, you have the hoaxers, you have the more genuine ones. Then they can be wonderful earth gates. And again, the one thing I've noticed as being a water diviner, and I look into the Earth's energy system. It's called the geodetic system of Earth energies. The genuine crop circles are always associated to vast underground reservoirs. That is an actual fact. And in fact, the Wessex Water were looking at one crop circle. It happened to be there, because there's a big reservoir there. And I was chatting to them, and they pointed out that was the largest underground reservoir in Europe.
Right, yeah.
When I was back in France, I used to pull up pictures of crop circles and use them as energy portals. I would meditate on them, and I had so many divine interesting experiences come from that. And I just recently I was upset with people saying that crop circles are evil or negative. I don't find that at all. I do think that the earth is very protective of itself, and if you don't have good energy, I do think you might have a bad experience. I think it's the energy that you bring there, but I think it's very, very protective of its own energy. And I was using them, like sacred geometry, just to use them to access different energetic portals. And it was absolutely beautiful. You just inspired me to do it again. I haven't done it in years, talking about crop circles. And I do believe that this is bringing me towards that again. But
yeah,
yes,
I agree.
It's
I agree.
It's quite interesting. The connection they have with sacred geometry is just very, very incredible. Along with that, I do believe that it's the earth trying to send us different energetic codes, trying to speak to us on many different levels.
Well, the interesting thing was the early crop circles. I just mentioned that Duke line, associated to the planets, yeah. And the very early crop circles back in the day, they all tended to appear, manifest, call it what you will, on the area of the Leys that were Mercury. And it was really quite interesting because Mercury, as we probably know, is the planet of communication. Yeah, and Mercury was also the god that was trusted to take the souls to the other world as well. That was also Mercury's role. And that's when people started to channel a lot. It was like it opened up a lot of the throat chakra, higher throat chakra, if you will. And people began to channel, cosmic energies and beings when they were in those circles. So I think it was like this massive opening then. And from that moment on, channeling became far more popular. So I think the crop circles had a kind of a role in that, if you will, because a lot of people were being attracted to them at the time. I mean, you did had such a wise move there, Sarah. You did that energetically, which you can for like stone circles and crop circles alike, and that's lovely and that's beautiful. And the people that kind of went there physically as well felt that opening. So I thought that was an amazing thing. And I also feel that was Gaia's voice coming through. A lot of people got switched on to earth energies at that point too.
I do believe that the earth is an energetic ship, and I believe it's trying to communicate to us on so many levels. It's a bit crying out.
Yeah, I think I think we've become
it's
disconnected.
Beautiful to see that.
We've become disconnected from the earth in a lot of ways, haven't we, really?
Yes, that's the thing. And some of the ancient sites of our ancestors, talking about being disconnected there, were underground. And there's a wonder, because we look at sites like Avebury and Stonehenge, and they're all above ground, and you go out into different sites in Europe, and they're all above ground. But some of the sites were deep, deep below the earth. And there's one magical place called Owen Agat, the Cave of Cats, which is in Ireland. And if you imagine that there's a slit in the ground with a kind of stone on the top, and you have to kind of get on your backside, so to speak, and slide into into this ancient site. And then when you slide into the ancient site, it opens up into a passageway. And the passageway is probably about 10 feet, and then it twists to another 10 feet below. So you're quite deep within the earth now. And then once you kind of walk down, because it opens up into quite a large area, and then you enter this, it looks like an underground cathedral where you have this massive tapering roof going up, and you're inside the earth amid the darkness. And what the ancients did, they would go in one way like that into this beautiful cathedral, and I cannot express the energy of being inside the earth. And if you do like sound energy work, it is absolutely divine. And then originally you would have gone out another way through another passageway, but sadly that's been crushed and fallen and broken off. So today you have to go out the same way as you came in. But I think that was a whole like initiation of being reborn back into the land, and it connects you. Even if I went in there with somebody that was really disconnected and probably didn't actually want to be connected, didn't want to experience earth energies at all, and do you know what he said to me when we came out? That's changed my life. Something happened to me in there, Maria, and he just became connected again. And I found that was a beautiful experience. So there's lots of underground sites in the British Isles that we can interact with. Another beautiful underground site is Mine Howe, and that's on the Isles of Orkney, which are the top of Scotland. And this is beautiful. You go down into the earth by 27 steps that like spiral downwards, and 27 is a lunar number. You're going down like on a DNA strand deep into the earth. Then you stand on a ledge and you take this leap of faith. Literally, you have to slightly jump down, and you jump down and you land on the platform, and then you feel like you've been caught by your mother. You've been wrapped in your mother nurturing energy. And when you just stand really deep inside of this monument, and you feel so at one with Gaia and with everyone around you, it is that moment of divine connectiveness between everything. And that's what I feel these sites were doing, the ones that were underground. You gotta go there.
And I do believe that the earth speaks to humanity and cares about humanity on a deep level and wants humanity to awaken to it, and that it can, it's very, very spiritual being to me. It's a live, spiritual, energetic being, and it is divine on every single level. And I think more and more for us to save the world, for us to make sure that, with Fukushima and all that's happened, for us to find solutions and stuff, we're going to have to get back in touch with the earth. And it's going to tell us, it's going to show us the way and give us the solutions on how to heal it.
Absolutely. And I feel this is what, that you guys are doing very successfully and beautifully. You've got a lovely yin-yang match, you two. You really have. And it's a pleasure to speak with Switch On people as yourself. But I think you're right. I think the time is so right now to get back in touch with our one mother. We all live upon her, and to move forward into a better space together.
Okay, we're just going to a commercial break. If you guys can just mute your microphones, and we'll be back in a few minutes with our guest Maria Wheatley.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
And welcome back to The Divine Truth on Revolution Radio with my guest this evening, Maria Wheatley. Before we continue, I just need to remind you that Revolution Radio is a listener-supported network. We do rely on your donations to keep us on air. Please go online to freedomslips.com and go to the Support Us section to make a donation. You can buy one of our seed packs starting at $60. All of our seed packs contain non-GMO, non-hybrid heirloom seeds and start at $60, $100, and also our jumbo pack, which is $200. You can also make a one-off donation there, or you can join our monthly support club where you can make a regular monthly donation starting at only $10. Now we return to the show with Maria Wheatley. Are you still there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. And Sarah, are you still there? Hello, Sarah? Oh, Sarah's gone off somewhere.
Here. I'm still here.
All right, okay.
My mute was blocked.
Okay. We were talking about crop circles before the break, and I just wanted to get your opinion, Maria, about this idea that crop circles are created by aliens and that they have some kind of information contained in them that some people try and decode. What is your opinion about that?
Yes, way back, I think it must have been about sort of 94, 95 when Stephen Greer was in this area and he was doing one of his like contacts of trying to contact, extraterrestrials.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and he claimed that he saw a craft come down and land not far from where you get a lot of the crop circles. So there is that link there. And certainly a lot of people I know have seen UFOs being escorted, not chased, but actually escorted by helicopters going across the fields that have crop circles in, whether they're going to, the Salisbury Plain, which is like the equivalent of our Area 51. It's a military-owned landscape near Stonehenge, could be the case. So, yeah, I think there are links like that in this area, and you do get a lot of anomalous craft that's seen. Just about 2 weeks ago, I was coming back from London with a friend, and this massive traveling at gosh knows what speed just went bump right across the road in front of us. So I think there are links like that there. Whether one person can decode it, or it will take quite a few people, or you can just go there and get your own messages, which is what a lot of people do. They just connect to them and get their own truths from places like crop circles. It's I think that's down to how people want to interact with them.
You visit a lot of like ancient sites and crop circles. I mean, what is your experience of UFOs? Have you seen many?
Yeah, because again, if you live in this area where I do, around Avebury, the Stonehenge and the crop circles, you're certainly in the thick of it. And I've seen a lot of craft. And one of which was quite a strange one that I saw with my daughter Raven. We were looking out at the landscape, and she said to me, Mum, what's that object? And it was like this amber object, and we were just like looking at it. The next minute, it morphed and changed into your classical UFO flying saucer shape, but jet black. And so I asked her to quickly get my camera, which was in my bag, and I took a couple of photographs, but that was definitely covered. That was stealth. It didn't come out on my camera at all. Loads of people all around this area do UFO watches. They do a lot of contact with ETs, or they ask for them to come, and a lot of people have indeed filmed them. There was one team from I can't remember if it was Norway or the Netherlands, to be truthful. But what they did was quite intriguing, and what they caught was fascinating. They set their cameras into a crop circle, but just to film time lapse. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And when they got the footage back, so to speak, and they slowed it down to a really slow space, what they could see coming out of the ground were like these white ball objects that would go up really high and then descend down again in a black ball object back into the ground. And this seemed to be going on sort of quite a lot. Then another guy, I was at a crop circle conference run by Francine Blake a couple of years ago, the Circle of Knowledge lectures. And there was a French researcher into crop circles and stone circles alike. And he did a similar thing. He set up his camera on time lapse, but what he wanted was just, a few shots. But what he caught was absolutely astonishing, because a lot of the people that claim to make the crop circle say that they're often spooked out of finishing them because they see the shadow people and they don't like the shadow people. Anyway, the French investigator caught this like 7 foot, 8 foot being a shadow person staring at everybody that was going in and out of the crop circle, but not one person looked towards that being, and that was clearly on the film, and it didn't move. It just stood there watching everybody.
Right, yeah, that's spooky.
Yes, that's a weird one. They call them the shadow people around here, and if anyone senses the shadow people, it's not nobody likes it.
Mm.
When I went down near the Stonehenge, there near that area, I've always encountered these beings in my life, and like I said, I've shifted into similar being as this. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Knowing at the end. They're very tall, energetic beings with elongated heads. It was really interesting because Lloyd Cannon, he's drawn some images of he's painted some beautiful paintings of these beings. And I had told Max, I said, I'm going to encounter a lot of beings when I go down near the Stonehenge that are like this. And as soon as I got there, I did. And not only that, there were all of the paintings around, and I took that as a literal direct sort of sign that they were there. Because when I walked into the bases conference, there were all of the beautiful paintings, and just to remind me that yes, they were there. And it seems like when I was there, I was interacting a lot with them. I remember getting out of my body and going to one of the mounds and going directly into inner earth. That's one of the experiences that I had when I was over there near the Stonehenge.
Yeah, there's some beautiful mounds outside of Stonehenge. Again, you're on military. The only thing is you are on military land. So if you go just outside of Stonehenge, and if you're ever around this area, Sarah, I'll take you there, because there's this like natural hill, but it looks like sculptured. So it's a natural hill that's had a tumulus put on the top of it, and it overlooks the military part of the Salisbury Plain near a place called Warminster. And when that was excavated by the archaeological team, I think back in the 60s or the 70s, I can't remember which decade to be truthful, but nonetheless, it was excavated, and it was found that it was put there especially to almost like to house a mother and a child that were eternally looking over the landscape as if they were the female guardians of that area. So how they were kind of placed within that mound was more like upright than led down, like laid.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel some of the burial mounds contain the guardians, and every now and again, as you go around the Salisbury Plain, you come to these like guardian burials, and they're very sacred as well. And then there was a kind of phase after Avebury. There was, a volcano went off and the climate changed. It went to the sub-Atlantic around about 1500 BC, and the stone circles were no longer used as much, and a different culture came in, which was the Druidic culture of the ancient Celts and Druids. And then they started to build monuments on the Salisbury Plain, very different to stone circles, but they're a culture quite close to my own heart, the Druids.
When I was very young, when I was in France, I had this amazing experience where it was almost like I was either transported or maybe it was just a past life experience. It was where I was floating in the middle of the Stonehenge, and it was lit up, and each it's as if there was gates or doorways all around. It was lit up so that it was bright, flashing doorways. And I remember I was in the middle of two specific doorways. There were all these doorways and two specific doorways, and it was one to the past and one to the future. And I just remember going through one of the portals, and then when I woke up, I was back in my room, and it seemed like as if almost I was there from this experience. I remember it was storming and the window was open, and I was literally laying on the floor, and I seemed a bit wet, but it was as if I had been out in the rain. It was an absolutely interesting experience I will never forget. But I remember literally like I was floating in the middle of the Stonehenge, and it was all lit up with all these doorways all around, but two specific doorways, and I just went through one of them.
I think Stonehenge is one of those absolutely fantastic monuments that speaks to people from all cultures, all ages, across time. It is that kind of monument that is the like a large communicator. The stones there, the blue stones alone, are so magnetic. Some of the stones as well at Stonehenge. So we're all going to have to meet there, We're all going to have to get private access. I got to take you guys in here, Come on, Revolution Radio, let's get into Stonehenge.
I do have Celtic ancestry, so I do have Celtic ancestry. Nobody believes it, but my hair's quite reddish, and I dye it brunette. But I have Celtic ancestry, and I think it definitely ties into that. Even going to the Shell Grotto, I don't know if you've ever been to the Shell Grotto. I felt like I'd been there before.
Yeah, that's great when we have these moments. Yeah, and I really do feel, with Stonehenge and reflecting upon your experience there, Sarah, and I hear a lot of this through the people that I take around. That their connection to Stonehenge reach out and sometimes awakens people. But that's the wonderful thing. And if you go into the inner sanctity of Stonehenge, there's one stone. I mean, it's now recumbent. It fell down in antiquity. But if you have a close look at it, you almost see the stone has been designed to have a spinal column, reflecting very much. You'll love it, Sarah. So, and you, Taj, you're just going to have to get yourselves down there with me.
Yeah.
And it's got like this spine. And if you put your hand above the spine, and no matter what the day is, whether it's raining or cold, it generates heat that you can follow along that line. It's absolutely extraordinary. And
Wow.
It kind of awakens your palm chakras, and you feel the energy. And even a sinister, a kind of guard, the security guard came over me and said, "Oh, you're not supposed to touch the stones. You're not supposed to touch the stones." And I said, "I'm not touching the stones. I'm above the stone." And he said, "Well, what you're doing?" And I said, "Well, my hands are cold. I'm warming my hands up." And I got the lady I was with, and we were all warming our hands up. And he took off his gloves and went, all that at us, and put his hand on there. And he just went, "Oh my God, this is generating heat." I said, "Yeah, I know. This is why we're here. This is what I've always been known as a kid. This is the heat stone, and this is where you go when you're cold." But it almost like really does speak to us. And if you go near the Greater Trilithon, and that's the biggest stone in the monument, you can't fail not to see it. You don't even need a map. It's there. It's standing tall and stalwart. orthodox dating for 4,500 years, but I'm going to put that back to 10,000, and you only have to go near it. And if you do get the moment when you can touch the stone, not that I advocate touching the stones because the security guards tell you not to do so, but if you do and you put your third eye against the trilithon, you have an instant download. And I feel that that's one reason why the authorities don't want you touching the stones, because it's a living monument and it can transfer information across you. It could awaken 9,000 people a day which go round there that are denied that. That's the reality of what Stonehenge could be doing. And fortunately for people like Sarah and others, Stonehenge has reached out across time to them, thank goodness.
Interestingly enough, there we go. The war on consciousness. This is some of my work of trying to tell people how there's such a huge war on consciousness. I was going to ask this question here. What do you think about the Stonehenge being connected to other great monuments in the world, such as the pyramids, even the Mayan pyramids, and different sacred sites? Because I remember from past lifetimes, I remember that we would go and we would stand and teleport to other planets through some of these stone formations, and how they connected up. It was not only a grid system here on Earth, but it was connected literally to other planets, like the face on Mars. They're saying there are pyramids on other planets, that it was a whole grid system that included the entire planetary system that's here.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think there is no separation. I think it's, the work on the Ley with the planetary systems, what you yourself are talking about, and others that say that Stonehenge is connected, for sure. It is, but on lots of different levels as well, so I think everything is kind of multi-layered around it. And even if we go to the lesser known sites that surround Stonehenge, for example, we can sort of have downloads there. I was at one Druidic site quite close to Stonehenge a few years ago now, and I was just kind of, mooching around the monument, having quite a nice day. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't, doing anything really switched on. And I just had a moment where I kind of did stand still. And the next moment I got this whole download of this astrological system, bang, in an instant. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. And over the years, I started to look into it and develop it. And that was what the Druids there told me. It connects, you can change your astrological birth chart into like this 6-pointed star, which reveals all your most important past lives, which reveals your spiritual heritage. And over time, with help from people like Dolores Cannon and others, I went on to develop this. And Dolores Cannon's publishing house is just about to publish that book, probably within the next 6 months, which is a sacred approach to past life astrology. But that's how these ancient sites can transfer information to us in like a big download. It might take if you're slow like me, it might take a couple of years to understand your download. But nonetheless, this is what I feel. I think they instantly connect us to the past, to put this information out, to awaken other people, to help our future. And I have such a positive outlook for the future, because just the other day, a woman who's an architect got in touch with me and said, I really want to learn about the land where I can build houses. I know a bit about sacred geometry. I want to know about the land. So I'm going to be doing her a bespoke course, because she doesn't really want to, about chakras and things. She's not interested in that, but she wants a lot about the land energies, so that she can look at building houses with new, fresh eyes about how to connect people, make sure it's well grounded, using good materials is so positive. So I think we are all, with the help of you two, with radio, reaching out across the media, sharing your experiences, Sarah, it just awakens people to a new realm. So I'm really positive that we can all stand forward and make a change together.
I agree with you. That just gave me goosebumps. And I remember the first time meeting you, it was magical, and you really left a mark on me. And right now, I know a lot about these things, and sometimes it is hard for me to put in words because I remember speaking, I remember those lives, and I remember other planetorial lives where I spoke through telepathy and through emotions and colors, through energy, not through speech. So it's been hard for me to sort of put everything into speech. It's very hard for me. But when I first saw you, you stood out. You definitely are a gem in all of this because you know
Oh,
what's going on. And I know a lot, but I do feel like you know so much more than me when it comes to these sort of things, to ley lines and the Stonehenge, and the work you're doing, it's definitely needed. It is very, very much needed. It's People need to reconnect to the earth. It's something that's going to save everybody in the end. It's going to save no matter what species, no matter what dimensions, because everything is connected. It's going to save the animals, it's going to save the earth, it's going to save everything in the end. It's going to save humanity.
well, yeah, and that's where, like I said, I think all of us together, we've shared experiences because we all come from life from a bit of a different angle. And when we come together, hand in hand and heart to heart, and trying to make a change, this is what happens. I mean, today it was a really cold, windy day, and there I was at Avebury again, and I'm always enthusiastic about the place. I could go there a million times, so I'm still smiling,
Oh, I know.
thinking I've got the Avebury feeling again. So I absolutely adore the place. But I took this woman around. She was working on a play in the West End, and she just wanted to break, get out of London, and connect to the energies. And we did a few kind of, very simple connections by, putting a light cord from our hearts deep into the ancient sites. And you could see her face change within a couple of minutes from being tired and drawn, living in the cityscape, to suddenly her eyes being relaxed, almost like her whole face becoming anew. It was a wonderful experience because I cannot express it enough that these ancient sites can rejuvenate us, and they can put us in touch with who we are as well. And so we can learn so much from them.
I agree with that. I noticed that I can't really be in the city too much. I have to at this point for a little bit, but it seems like there's black holes. Maybe if it's all the people who are disconnected from the earth, so they're energy vampires to each other. Whereas if they were connected to the earth, they wouldn't be energy vampires to each other. They would be getting enough nurture and energy.
Yes, I
Enough
mean,
nurture and energy from the earth. Sorry about that. Somebody was trying to call me, but they would be getting enough nurture and energy, so it would fill that void within them, because there's so many people in cities, and it seems like they have this huge void in them.
yes, and that's where I think we can reach out. I mean, one of my really favorite sort of sacred site places, which I think is totally alchemic and transformative, is there's a place in Ireland, and it's called Carrickeel. And Carrickeel is absolutely magical because if you imagine that you have to walk up a mountainside, it's not a steep mountainside. They call the mountains in Ireland, but to Americans, Sarah, they're probably just a big hill or something. But you walk up this hill, and that's a wonderful experience in itself. Then you reach the top, and you have this horizon line that seems to go on into infinity. But what you're approaching in these ancient sites are cairns, they're called. They're a bit like round barrows, but they all have white quartz all over them. So you're approaching like these three magnificent, they actually look like UFOs in a way, on top of this hillside. And as you approach them, the sun glints off the white quartz, and it is astonishing. And then when you enter through quite a narrow opening into they're called burial mounds, but come on, we know they weren't burials, they're initiation chambers. They're far, far more than just a burial mound. But as you enter it, and you look around for the first time, you realizing that you're entering a white quartz box, and everything around you is beautifully worked white quartz, and they are astonishing. And that part of Ireland, interestingly, has some of the oldest monuments in the British Isles, which are about 4,600 BC, Orthodox dating. And compare that to Avebury, Orthodox dating, 3,000, 2,500 BC. These are the oldest monuments in the British Isles. And I think they're quite old because if you were coming from the west, let's say Atlantis, for example, you would, and let's say you're on a boat because, there's been some kind of, massive earth change, and then you would sail into a natural port near there. And I feel that's why those monuments are the oldest in the British Isles, because they're on the west coast of Ireland. So I would say to any listener that wants to go to somewhere very special in Ireland, go to Carrickeel, spend some time inside the white quartz box, and you will go from the ordinary to the extraordinary and come out very different. It's an amazing place.
I will be visiting soon and definitely come down and see you so that I can have a tour with you. I've every time I go there or I go to Glastonbury, it's so magical. I spent quite a bit of time in Glastonbury, and I had so many experiences. It's got that feel. There's that sort of feel even when you're around Stonehenge. When you're in Glastonbury, there's just this feel, and it's almost addictive. I want to go back so bad. It is. I feel like spiritually uplifted there, and maybe it's because there's so many points on earth right now with cities and stuff that it's just so draining that when I'm there I feel so giddy and happy and connected to the earth, and that's definitely something that means a lot to me.
Well, absolutely. And the thing about that connects Glastonbury to Avebury, for instance, is you've got the St. Michael Ley, which is quite a long ley. It's about 300 miles long, and Avebury-Henge is in the exact centre of that ley. But Glastonbury is further on down the ley, so to speak. And there's two earth currents that entwine it called Mary and Michael that wrap themselves around on the Tor, and almost kind of it's described as like an alchemic marriage that happens on the Tor with these earth energies. And there was a amazing woman back in the 1930s called Catherine Maltwood, and she's painting some of the pub walls in Glastonbury, very much loved. And
That's so beautiful there.
yeah, and she was flying in a plane, which was a really big thing for a woman in the 1930s, actually. And she looked down at the Glastonbury landscape and realized it was a massive landscape zodiac. And she discovered the signs of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and so on and so forth, right around the Glastonbury landscape, and felt that the Tor, Glastonbury Tor, which is this massive, large, like hill that comes out of the ground that was at one time surrounded by water, the Isle of Avalon, that represented the energy of the phoenix and the sign of Aquarius, for example. So Glastonbury has this wonderful landscape zodiac around it that can only be appreciated from the air. So it contains a cosmology within itself, Glastonbury. So that's another magical thing about Glastonbury. But you're right, Sarah. It is a place where you go to, you feel the energies, and you love it. There is something about these places where you say, like you said yourself, Sarah, I got to go back.
Yes, it's addictive. And that's where the spiritual pilgrims, they would go there. That was their journey. I was reading about that in Glastonbury, how that was part of their journey, and I know why. It's because it connected them to the sacred earth energies.
Oh, absolutely. And Glastonbury Abbey, which was, fell into ruin, but still is very atmospheric. It's a wonderful place. That was renowned for miracles to happen there. So pilgrims would come from all over England and Scotland and the British Isles, if you will, to Glastonbury Abbey to experience its energies for healing. And flowing right the way down the axis line is the earth current, the feminine earth current called Mary. It was dedicated to Saint Mary, and she is really powerful. So anyone that walks down that axis line is flowing down the very all healing and beautiful Mary current. And then just by the high altar of Glastonbury Abbey, it crosses with the Michael earth energy current, creating what's called a nodal point where the earth energies dip down in the ground. And in a kind of a magical, legendary sense, there is the grave of Guinevere and King Arthur on that energy line. So it contains everything, in a way, Glastonbury: legend, truth, holy history, initiation, and healing. And then go round the corner, as you know very well, Sarah, you come to the magical Chalice Well, don't you, with all of its healing waters. And to taste that is to taste the water in its most beautiful way of how we should all be drinking water. And that's the truth of the matter with the white spring, which has a lot of calcium in it, and the red spring that has a lot of iron in it. And what are we drinking from our taps is just totally shocking.
Energetically charged water. I just was looking into the Kangen water. It's all about energetically charged water. You know, yes, we're drinking dead water. We're eating dead food. And it's disconnecting us from the earth. It's disconnecting us from the earth consciousness, which is, for me, it's God's source.
Absolutely, and I agree. You know, I have an energized water system in my house, and I wouldn't have anything else. And when we look at the kind of the healing waters of Glastonbury and places worldwide, and some of the really, really deep aquifers that are around, you see, some rainwater fell about 40,000 years ago, and they're stored in these deep, deep reservoirs that are very pure water. And then if you look to public schools, for example, I think you'll find that a lot of them have their own water supplies connecting into these deep aquifer systems. And quite a lot of the very well-off people, for example, have their own private wells on these aquifer systems, because it's pure water that's constantly being filtered through the different layers. So it is mineral rich. And that, as like you said, Sarah, is the difference between living water and dead water.
And we are made up mostly of water. So putting dead water within us only instills that within our own water systems that are in our bodies. And excuse me, I'm a bit tired. I've had a very, very long day. It's the end of the day here in the United States. I've had a long work day, even though it's Sunday. So you know, all of the Dr. Emoto, all of his stuff on water, all of his help me with the word here, Tosh. His studies on water,
all of his experiments,
yes, on water. You know, it shows exactly how water affects us on every single level. And I believe, just like the channels of the earth, the water channels of the earth, it's connected directly energetically to the water channels in our bodies. I truly believe this.
Well, that's what I wrote about in my book, Divine in Ancient Sites. So we're certainly on the same wavelength here, Sarah, because in that book I was writing about, if you connect to the energy field of the deep water, especially at somewhere like an ancient site, although you could do it anywhere, you know, where there's a body of water, it doesn't have to be at an ancient site. But if you do happen to be at an ancient site, it's quite magical. And you connect to the earth's inner waters and allow that to cleanse and rejuvenate your own inner body water waters. I went on to say that I feel that it's maybe a truth, a lost remembering of how the ancients may have worked with the ancient sites, is that the deep underground water can cleanse our own body water. And because water contains memory, doesn't it? All homeopaths, we know that water has memory, that our own body water can have its memory field, sometimes great memories, sometimes perhaps not so great memories. And working with these inner bodies of water, we can release unwanted memories into that water and feel cleansed from the inside out. And I've put loads of people through this cleansing routine and procedure, for want of a better expression, and people really do feel cleansed. And the magical thing is your body actually reacts in a way to the ground once you've kind of cleansed your body water. So I personally feel that some of the initiations at ancient sites started with cleansing your own body water before you even went into an ancient site, as well as the physical cleansing that's always associated with ancient sites, like the Ganges River or something. I think it was inside out, outside and on the inside as well.
So I have a question here about this, and I believe that many religious books, I believe, first of all, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. I believe many religious books, like the Bible and stuff, I think that they come from original divine teachings. I do think they've been distorted and they've been taken literally, and they're often encoded with things. Do you think the baptism could represent that, cleansing your inner waters?
That's
To
really
be baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's really, really interesting. This is what I love about, talking to people like yourself, Sarah, because, you exchange ideas, and I've always sort of acted with cleansing body water like that and hadn't thought along those lines. But as soon as you said that, I felt like that's the truth. That's right. So, so I would say that quite possibly. And it's a beautiful way of looking at something as well, because, again, I really do feel that sensitive people at the moment, your listeners, you yourself, it's this time we're all remembering things and coming together and sharing this. So thanks for that, Sarah. That's something I will take on board and certainly resonate with.
Well, you think even about John the Baptist, of when he was baptizing people, it was probably on a specific point, and he was probably cleansing their literal bodies' waters. And this is why homeopathy is so important. And I react very well to homeopathy. And sadly in the United States, they don't recognize this as a very good medicine. But for me, being as sensitive as I am, it works really well because it works on the inner waters. It literally cleanses the inner waters and reprograms your inner waters.
Yeah, and I think, the more that we do this, and I've been doing it for quite a few years now, I really do feel so rejuvenated. It is alchemic. And, the earth wants to help her children. It's like, I'm a mother, I want to help my daughter, the earth, I'm Gaia's daughter as well. So it's a two-way thing where you build up this relationship. And then I had a lovely moment after I'd cleansed my body water on one occasion, and I actually felt the light within the water. And it was the kind of the living light within the living water that was interacting with my own body water. And it was almost like a tingling sensation that was so beautiful that I remember being at Avebury and I just wanted to go, to everybody, this is amazing. Come over and do this. Don't just sort of stand around. And from that moment on, I really did feel, yes, this is a long lost wisdom that, that we can all share with one another.
Well, you're definitely very, very vibrant. I was reading up the other day, and this is something that I've done since I'm very young. I will walk and chat within myself and say, I'm light, I'm love, I'm pure. But I was reading up, apparently, that was one of the things that the Egyptians did. They would say they were pure, and to be pure, to have pure waters inside.
Wow. Yeah.
Pure waters. Yes. So I found that absolutely divine.
Well, yeah, I mean
Um,
that's great, because again, it's making these connections, isn't it?
Mm.
yes.
Maria, I wanted to ask you about healing frequencies. A lot of people talk about like you should listen to like the frequency of the earth or other frequencies. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Or like what type of do you listen to like music at certain frequencies?
Well, how I think about the Earth frequencies, um, some years ago, you had these absolutely amazing French school of dowsing, and these French dowsers spent some time with experiments and learning about how to use pendulums and things, and they came up with what they called the healing colors of the Earth colors. So when we think about ley lines and earth currents, and if you're following Maria's method, you're drawing a grey line with a pencil on your OS map and you found your ley. They're full of colour. They're not only full of the colour of the electromagnetic light spectrum, like ultraviolet and infrared. They contain different earth colors as well, and each one has a different frequency. Okay, so you can get high frequencies and you can get lower frequencies. And one of the earth frequencies that this French team played with is called negative green, and they enhanced it and enhanced it and enhanced it, and it's so powerful. And I think the ancient Egyptians knew about this frequency very well, that it can mummify anything. Well, anyway, one of the French diviners was in his laboratory. He raised the frequency of negative green, and this has gone down in dowsing history. He was found 1 week later with no rotting smell, but completely mummified in his laboratory. The power of earth frequencies is astonishing. Yeah. Now, I can remember once working with some people on the higher frequencies, which are, like the ultraviolet and what you call in dowsing infra-white. If any water is infra-white, it's very, very, very healing. It's not just the water that can be healing. If it's a very high frequency, it creates an energy field that is healing. So it's not just the water per se. Do you see what I mean? It's the land upon which it is. So I feel a lot of the earth colors can be used for healing by tuning into them and working with their frequencies as well. I mean, you do also get the earth. Sorry, sir.
This is the work I'm doing right now. I have a rainbow aurora, and most people only have 2 to 3 colors in their aurora. And I was trying to explain how in Atlantis, even, when I remember from Mars and stuff, we would have where they used light to heal the soul, to heal the aurora energy. And by doing so, that would make, that heal people on every single level. And it was all the rainbow colors. Now, interestingly enough, in the Bible, it states that the angels were multidimensional and they were robed, or they had crowns that were like rainbows.
Yeah. Well, again, it's kind of interpreting the concept, isn't it, through different kind of means and cultures, whether it's the Egyptians or the Bible. So I do feel that there are healing frequencies within the earth which we can work with. There are also some geopathic stress
Restores the
ones.
colors.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So the coat of many colors. I don't mean to cut you off here, but the coat of many colors. Remember the story of Joseph, and he had a coat of many colors, and that's why his brothers were very jealous of him. It's not because he had a literal coat. It's because his aurora was multicolored, which made him close to God.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, if you do your if you can see auras, fantastic. If not, you can douse for a color of an aura quite easily within seconds. And once you kind of interact with a particular color within the landscape, and let's just go for a high color one like ultraviolet, for example, and you interact with that for a little while, and you redivine, douse your color, or you can see an aura, it will shift you up to the color that you are interacting with. So these colors really do influence us in many unseen ways. Now, here's the thing. An Egyptian dowser, he inherited all the works of these French diviners, and he went on. He's an architect in Egypt. His name will come to me in a moment. Forgive me for not saying it straight away. It is late here in the UK as well, Sarah. So long day and all of that. But what he did, he noticed that if you create a shape, and let's say that shape is a typical one in the ancient design canon of ancient sites, it's a corbelled roof, yeah, like many sites had corbelled roof. The White House as well, it's got a dome effect. Anything with the dome effect or corbelled roof effect, they're one and the same, generates three particular earth energy colors. And when they're combined together with shape, they can instantly alter our consciousness. So that's why a lot of different cultures use that arch, that kind of dome corbelled roof effect. And one spectacular place to witness earth colors, because it's a place called Maze Howe in the Orkney Isles. And I spoke about Mine Howe, that place where you go down the 27 steps. Not far from that's another wonderful ancient site called Maze Howe. And when you go in there, it has a huge corbelled roof. It's like going into a cathedral that was built in the Neolithic period, 5,000 years ago. And if you close your eyes and then open your eyes, 9 times out of 10, you will see the most beautiful green in front of you that you have ever seen, like the emerald color of that beautiful gemstone, because it resonates a lot of the heart chakra, green earth color, a dome effect. So it's a very beautiful experience to work with the earth colors and their frequencies.
I have I want to tell you about this experience, and again, I am very much tied to Egypt. You were just talking about mummification, and so I thought maybe you'd like to hear this because it is definitely a past life memory. I remember I was definitely not so human. I was a bit human looking, but not so much. I remember that I was with my entire family, and we were put inside of our sarcophagus. I laid inside of mine, and when I laid down, I remember there was my brother in that lifetime. He was standing near mine, and he said to me, "You're only going to go to sleep, and when you go to sleep, you're going to come back in another time." But he said, "For now, we must go to sleep." So I laid down in my sarcophagus, and this liquid gold being appeared, and he started to just sort of through his mind mentally, I guess, carve different sort of sigils or high magic around the sarcophagus, around in the stone. This is what I remember. And I was laying in there, and then my brother said, "It's time for you to go to sleep." And so I closed my eyes, and I remember that before I did, the being started focusing on me. And as he did, my body, I saw myself come out of my body. So I started to look at my body from another dimension. I was in the same dimension as this golden being, and my body instantly mummified. Instantly, within minutes, was mummified.
It's interesting that you should say that, because that's akin to what the French diviners thought, that they knew how to manipulate, enhance that type of energy, and they could, just like you've described. It wasn't a case of it's going to take a long time to mummify, but it was a kind of instant reaction by working with the earth energies. And one of them noticed that whenever you get a pyramid, it's not there might be one bit that's just slightly out, not necessarily 100% perfect, so to speak. And that one little bit out allows that kind of frequency, the mummification earth energy frequency, to be more active. So it's very interesting to think that the earth can play a role in our lives, and also within our deaths as well, because the mystery schools and the secret societies and the Templars, they all knew how to work with their kind of karma. So there's a certain grid system that lies east of north, and in old medieval churches, you always get like this little small door. It's only about 80 centimeters across, and you think, unless you're very small, how on earth are you going to get through that door? It's a symbolic door that they use in their death rites to allow the soul to release some of its karma. And you go to large places like Vienna of the Habsburgs' fame, and all of their catacombs have that line going through it. So I think, that we can go back to these ancient death rites and re-explore them. And it was about 5 years ago that I met up with someone that designed graveyards. He got in contact with me like you do. I thought, really? You design graveyards? And he said, yeah, but what I want to do is I want to get back to these ancient ways of, what did the ancients do and what did they find to put their barrows on and things. So I began to show him the ancient kind of earth energy patterns, and they have now been incorporated into this cemetery in Liverpool, of all places, overlooking the Mersey, would you believe? But he's reintroducing the ancient death rites because this is our birthright and our death right to have. It shouldn't just be for the elite on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Maria, we're going to finish up in a couple of minutes.
Sure.
I just wanted you to maybe give out your contact information. Do you have a new website at the moment?
Yeah, I've still got the aveburyexperience.co.uk, so you can contact with me through that website, and I'm doing some tours to Malta on the 25th of April, and anyone that's interested in that can get in contact with me at Maria Wheatley at AOL.com. My college, which is fully affiliated to the Association of British Correspondence Colleges, esotericcollege.com, got hacked. But we're coming back like the phoenix with better courses, and we're going to be shining beacon bright pretty soon. So you can't keep a good woman down. and the course is all to certificate level, and I really do love teaching, and really try to help all of my students achieve the best. I teach tarot to adept level, past life regression, druidic soul star astrology, and of course dowsing. And I take people around ancient sites. And next time you're down, Sarah, you and Taj are just going to have to come and knock on my door, and I'm going to be taking you guys around Stonehenge or Avebury, and it's a date.
Oh, I can't wait. I definitely will be contacting you for the past life regression. I think you can definitely help me with that one.
Wow,
I'll be
it'll
sending
a
you some good
pleasure.
friends too. Yes.
Maria, go ahead, Sarah.
Go ahead.
Maria, are you doing any conferences this year?
Yes, I'm doing several talks. I'm doing the big Ley Hunters Moot on the 17th, and I've got an events page. And apart from that one, what am I like? I've gone a blank. It's heading towards midnight, folks, and my mind has just gone blank. But yeah, I've got quite a few coming up, and they're on my events page. And so get in touch with me anyway. Anyone interested in courses and things, and I do Skype readings, tarot and past life druidic soul star astrology, born of an ancient site near Stonehenge. Maria Wheatley at AOL.com.
Okay, I'll put all your contact information on the YouTube video when I get that ready. Do you know also for UK listeners, is there an easy way where they can find the nearest sort of ancient site to them if they want to visit one?
Yes, there's some really good resource tools out there. You can go to just type in megalith, and you should get to either Megalithic Odyssey, or you'll go through to the Modern Antiquarian. That's a really good resource tool because it lists all the ancient sites, and if you just click on what you think looks like your county, it will bring up all of the ancient sites there. And some good books are by a fantastic archaeologist. He's very open-minded, called Aubrey Bill. Prehistoric Sites of Britain is probably your classic. If there's ever going to be a Bible of ancient sites, that's got to be one of them. So Aubrey Bill's written some fantastic books, and he really does describe them truthfully. And then you can go there like Sarah and attune to them and get your own information.
Okay, well, that was good timing. That's the music coming in now. I just want to thank you, Maria, for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you,
Oh, it's
Maria.
been
You're ever so lovely.
Oh, so it's just been great with you guys. You're a really good team. Keep up your good work and sharing your experiences with people, Sarah. You know, you're awakening a lot of people out there.
Okay, thanks
See you
guys,
then.
and good evening, everyone. Bye.
Bye. It's off to bed now for me. See ya. Bye. Bye.
Goodbye.
See you, Sarah.